when Federal Reserve officials speak, investors listen for clues and hopefully some clarity. But once in a while, their remarks can create more questions than answers, and that was evident in the market today. Confusion reigned as central bank officials appeared to walk back the chance of a more sizable interest rate cut at the next policy meeting later this month. Hopes for a 0.5% cut were fueled by comments made yesterday by the president of the New York Fed, and they were top of mind again today when the head of the St. Louis Fed spoke. All the confusion, though, resulted in a down market, with the industrial average down 68 points. We're at 27,154. NASDAQ was down 60. The S&P slipped by 18. And all the major averages were lower for the week as well, with the NASDAQ and the S&P turning in their worst performances since May. Steve Liesman takes a look now at this Fed back and forth and whether investors are preparing for a quarter or half-point cut.
St. Louis Fed President James Bullard, speaking in New York today, said the Federal Reserve needs to follow through on what he said was essentially a promise it made to markets in June.
We didn't ease at the June meeting, but signals were that we were highly likely to ease at the July meeting. So now that's all been priced into markets. So if you try to take that out, I think it would be very difficult at this stage. So you might as well follow through and ratify that.
Bullard said a quarter-point cut was appropriate for July, not 50, which some have been talking about, but the Fed could revisit additional cuts in the months ahead. He went on to defend New York Fed President John Williams, saying he thought controversial comments that Williams made yesterday were more about academic research than they were a comment on where current policy from the Fed is going next. Williams said research shows, quote, "Don't keep your powder dry. That is, move more quickly to add monetary stimulus than you otherwise might." But not long after that, the New York Fed said the comments were academic and, quote, "not about potential policy actions at the upcoming meeting." Right now, the Fed funds futures market is pricing in a 100% probability of a July rate cut, and that divides like this: a 63% chance of a quarter-point cut and a 37% chance of a half-point cut. It had been as high as 60% after Williams spoke yesterday. Williams continued to raise concerns about a certain tone deafness at the top of the Powell Fed, and leaves markets wondering, will the Federal Reserve cut by a quarter point or a half a point, or should it really be cutting at all? For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Liesman.